This novel has been written in mid 19th century and the setting of the novel has been kept as the industrial town named Coketown. The major characters of the novels goes like Thomas Gradgrind, Mr. Bonderby, Tom, Louisa, Sissy, Mrs. Perset, Stephen Blackpool, James Harthouse, Rachel. Charles Dickens, a few of the Victorian novelists to see popularity during his lifetime, wrote this novel with a view to highlight the social plight of the times. He highlighted the more mechanical nature of the humans due to industrial revolution and going down of the human creative and emotional sides. Thomas Gradgrind, one of the major character of the novel, emphasizes more on the facts. He is least bothered about the creative side of the human and the emotional sides of the humans. He has a son, Tom, and a daughter, Louisa, and teaches both of them to learn more and more facts and be practical in the life. Louisa and Tom gets interested in circus. Seeing their interest in circus, the father is concerned and he discusses his concern with his friend Mr. Bonderby. Mr. Bonderby and Gradgrind together holds Sissy, one of their classmates, responsible for their interest in circus. She is an innocent girl. Father works in a circus. More creative, emotional, and less of a fact person. Mr. Gradgrind and Bonderby together tries to get Sissy out of their school as they see her as a problem. Then Mr. Gradgrind offers Sissy to stay with him when he gets to know that her father has abandoned her. Sissy, having no option, nowhere to go, agrees to stay with Mr. Gradgrind. Sissy is uncomfortable with Mr. Gradgrind as he always presses on their children to learn more and more facts, avoid the creative side of their childhood. Sissy was offered to stay with them till the time his father comes back and takes her away. One day, Thomas Gradgrind offers his daughter Louisa to marry his friend Mr. Bonderby. Although Mr. Bonderby was way old than her daughter, the calculation of facts as per him said that the marriage would benefit him. Mr. Bonderby was a rich person who used to run a factory. Mr. Bonderby always boasted of him being a self-made person who was poor but worked hard to make himself rich. Gradgrind knew that once Louisa is married to Mr. Bonderby, his son Tom would be in a good state. Mr. Bonderby would take good care of his son Tom and would finance him for education or other things. Louisa, looking at the facts, agreed for the proposal, knowing that she is not in love with Bonderby, kept her emotions aside and went with the teachings of his father, focusing on facts. Sissy did warn Louisa to not get married to Bonderby, but she did not listen to her and the marriage took place. Mrs. Perset, a widow who used to stay with Mr. Bonderby in his house, was uncomfortable with the marriage. Mr. Bonderby started valuing Mrs. Perset less after his marriage with Louisa, and this made her jealous of Louisa. Not like Louisa at all, as her presence was devalued. The novel also has a second important Director Stephen Blackpool, who works as a laborer in the factory of Mr. Bonjabi. He is stuck in a unhappy marriage and wants to divorce his wife. He also loves another woman named Rachel, whom he wants to marry. For help, he goes to Mr. Bonderby. Mr. Bonderby, instead of helping him, says that divorce are for rich people and poor cannot afford it. So he should accept the condition of his unmarried state of life and live the way he is. At this point, Dickens highlights the emotionlessness of the humanity of the Victorian times. Stephen Blackpool goes away, but Louisa follows him and gives him money, asks him to look for other job as she cannot do more than that. Tom, on the other hand, who was in the house of Louisa, instead of becoming a good person, became more spoiled day by day. He started gambling, drinking alcohol, and all other negative things. He ran after Stephen Blackpool and said something in his ears. James Harthouse is another character who came to Coketown from London. He was here to spend some time in this city. On meeting Louisa, he fell in love with Louisa and he wanted to marry her. James Harthouse asked Louisa to marry her, but she asked him to meet later. The conversation was overheard by Mrs. Spursett, who was looking for such an opportunity. She ran to Mr. Bonjabi and informed everything she overheard. On this side of the story, Tom did ask Stephen Blackpool to come near a bank in his ears. Stephen Blackpool was waiting for Tom near a bank. He got to know that the bank was robbed. Everybody started thinking that it was him who had robbed the bank, but it wasn't him. Tom had ran away from the city, and Stephen Blackpool fell in a pit but was saved somehow. After being pulled out of the pit, he revealed that the bank was robbed by the Tom. He was called there by the Tom, and it was not him who had robbed the bank. Mr. Bonderby to clear his name, and he wanted not to be claimed as a thief. Mr. Bonderby went to Mr. Gradgrind to tell him about the Louisa's affair with Mr. James Harthouse. On going there, he found that Louisa was with his father Gradgrind. She had expressed all her feelings about her unhappy married life. Louisa did not want to stay married to Mr. Bonderby, neither did she wanted to marry James Harthouse. Instead, she wanted to remain free and live a life of her own. Sissy was happy to hear Louisa confess her emotions after so long. After all this, Mr. Gradgrind realized his pathetic behavior of raising their kids only with facts. Gradgrind at that point of time realized that only facts cannot help people live a life of prosperity and stature. Tom had robbed the bank and everybody got to know about this. He had ran away and people were looking for him. It was Sissy who had hid the Tom in her father's circus. She got him disguised and helped him stay undercover. He informed Gradgrind about this fact and they all together tried to get Tom out of the country. At that point of time, another student from Gradgrind school hell bent upon finding Tom and putting him behind the bars. Gradgrind asked him to let go Tom, but he adamant to find Tom and said that it was Gradgrind who taught him to work practically, to be more practical and less emotional and creative. Gradgrind realized his failed way of raising children. In this way, Dickens highlighted the mechanical way of raising children. During the Industrial Revolution, fall of the creative side, emotional side of the humans, Dickens also attempted to bring out the sufferings of the labor class of the times.